Hello and good morning, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, as you know that we are carrying a number of lectures and under the series Social Entrepreneurship, and today we would be talking on problem as well as opportunity identification. And for this very discussion, we have once again with us in our studios Mr. Yogesh Kumar. Mr. Yogesh Kumar is a social entrepreneur, and we believe that all what he is going to teach today would be beneficial for you. Hello, Mr. Yogesh Kumar. Welcome to Data Set Lecture.
So today we will talk about opportunity and problem identification. In the last lecture we talked about social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, the literature of social entrepreneurship, how it evolved over the period of time, who is a social entrepreneur, what a social entrepreneur does, all these things. But an entrepreneur can only be an entrepreneur if he is identifying an opportunity, or a social entrepreneur if he is addressing a problem. So how this whole domain of problem identification and opportunity identification works. So first I'll go into the literature part of it. An opportunity is defined as a futuristic or a future situation which is deemed desirable and feasible. Let's focus on this part only. Opportunity is defined as a future situation which is deemed desirable and feasible. So any social entrepreneur or an entrepreneur for that matter would always believe or see a future which he feels will be desirable and more feasible than the current future or the current situation that we are in. Thus, opportunity is a realistic concept. Opportunity vary among individuals and for individuals over time. So different people see opportunity in a different way from their own perspectives, because individuals have different desires and their perspective themselves with different capabilities. Desire vary with current position and future expectations. Capabilities vary depending upon innate skills, training and the competitive environment. Perceptions of both desire and capabilities are loosely connected to reality. That's what Stevenson and Jarillo says in their work that they have done. Again, exploring on the word opportunity and its concept, opportunity are perceived as positive situations that are controllable. So the controllable word is of high significance here, because we see as future which we can control. Like it said that if you can control the future, you don't need to predict it. Also, opportunity should meet two tests. One is it must represent a desirable future state involving growth or at least change, and individual must believe it is possible to reach that state. Again, it's come from the work of Stevenson and Gumter, 1985. So what it says is that we always feel that there is a desirable future state which is better than the present state that we are in. So we believe that problems that we have in our current times, or the gaps that we have in current times, can be filled and can be addressed in future. So that is what we call a desirable state, which is better than the present state. So for that we talk about opportunity identification. We'll talk more about it later in the lecture. So typical source of opportunity is a need. So a need can be defined as a requirement which, if at all met, can lead us to desirable state in the future. So when we say a need is a typical source of opportunity, we believe that there are a lot of innovations that happen on the grassroots level as well as in the high academia state or the academia space. The only common point between these two domains is that both of them identifies need. Even a person working at the grassroots level identifies need, plays around, toys around with some things and creates an innovation which fulfills his need. On the other hand, in academia or in high level research, what people do is they also identify a need and then they work to address that need with the current resources that they have at hand. Another way or the another source of opportunity is the way that need is currently satisfied. So one way that we have discussed is that the need is at all not satisfied in the present state, which can be satisfied in the desirable future state. The second way is that the need is currently satisfied but not satisfied in a manner in which it can be or it could be. Suppose if a process is there and it is working at 80% of its efficiency, then we can identify a different way in which the same process can work at its full capacity, say 100% of its efficiency. So that's when we say that the need is currently satisfied but not in the manner that it can be or it could be. So this is the another way of sourcing the opportunity. The next is the cost of supply. When we say the cost of supply, most of the, be it the mobile phones that we carry in our hand or the laptops or any other inventions of the 21st century, they are working towards reducing the cost. Mobile phone over the periods have become really cheap. Similarly, the computers and other devices as well. So we regularly work towards making these things cheaper, not cheaper in terms of just finances, but in terms of making it affordable for everyone, be it, making some innovations with it or bringing down the price or anything. But the cost of the supply, if you address that issue, then you also identify as an opportunity. And the second one, the last one will be the economics of the supply. When we say the cost of the supply, it means the price of that particular commodity. When we say the economics of supply, we take into consideration everything from supply to demand to the whole circumstances, to the whole resources that we have at hand. So when we talk about economics of supply, how can that supply be made more feasible, more economical, more affordable for people? So that's when we say economics of supply. It just not confines itself to the price point of the supply. Now, these can happen through entrepreneurial alertness. So you have to be very attentive as an entrepreneur. You have to be very considerate. You have to be very opportunistic in terms of identifying the opportunities, be it a need, like a need that you can fulfill that hasn't been filled, or be it the way in which the need is met, so that it is not being currently satisfied, so you can devise another way so that it can be addressed in a better way. Like most of the taxi platforms that have come up recently, you can say that the need of the taxi was already being met. I mean, people were using taxis before also, but with this invention of using mobile as a source to book taxi, it has defined the need in a new way. So it has satisfied the need in a way which hasn't been done before. So in this case, they have found out a new way in which the need can be satisfied. Okay. The another thing is that the intuition and knowledge is also very important. So the whole entrepreneurial framework works around intuition. So in the last lecture, we have studied what is the difference between an entrepreneurial way of working and a managerial way of working. When you say entrepreneurial, intuition is a part of it. You feel, there is a gut feeling, you believe that, these things can be addressed through these solutions, and then you apply your logic and knowledge to, reach to a solution. So when we say that intuition and knowledge are used, we can say the cost of supply or the economics of supply can be addressed through intuition and knowledge, entrepreneurial alertness, and I'll also talk about the corridor principle. So what is the corridor principle? We all know what a corridor is. So if you open a door, you get into a place or a space where you have many more doors. So when you open one door and then you have many other doors to open, then again many other doors to open. So it's like a fission sort of reaction wherein you start something and then it keeps on multiplying, and then you have many other opportunities to explore. So when we talk about the corridor principle, we talk about subsequent newer opportunities. So suppose if you explore an opportunity, then you find out 10 other opportunities that you can explore, and you could only reach to those opportunities because you have identified the first opportunity. That's what we call corridor principle. So exploring one opportunity gives you opportunity to explore other opportunities. Now we talk about entrepreneurship, effectual reasoning. In the last lecture, we have also talked about effectual reasoning, how effectual reasoning is different from the causal reasoning. So there are two concepts, one is effectual, another one is causal, that we talked about in the last lecture. Effectual is more of a starting like inertia, self-starting sort of way of doing things rather than managerial. So in effectual, one thing that we studied was that we don't start with the resources that we have or we need to have to attain a certain outcome or to reach to a goal. In a causal reasoning, what we do is that first we identify the task, we accumulate the resources, and then only we work towards attaining that goal or working towards that goal. In effectual reasoning, what we do is that we identify the thing or the need that we need to address, and then we accumulate resources and work towards it. We don't wait for everything to be in place to start our work. That's what we call effectual reasoning. So how do they begin? So let us put things in perspective. So we studied social entrepreneurship. Why are we studying that? Because we need to understand the domain of social entrepreneurship. What social entrepreneurship is all about, when was it started, what is the domain, how does it look like, what are the traits of an entrepreneur, how is an entrepreneur different from another person just working or having an idea. So now we are talking about starting something of your own, starting an enterprise, a social enterprise. So when we talk about starting an enterprise, we started talking on opportunity. Like first you need to identify the opportunity on which you wish to work, the opportunity that you see you can exploit, or a need, or a problem. So a problem may be the lack of clothing, the problem may be the lack of proper medical facilities to the people from marginalized communities. So you can see all these things as a problem, and then you can innovate your solution to address those problems. This is what we are doing to put things in perspective. And now how do we start with it? Problem identification is one thing, opportunity identification is another. And then we talk about the resources that we have or we should map before starting something. So if we wish to start a social enterprise or an enterprise, we would say the first question that we need to ask is, who am I? My traits, my taste, my abilities, etc., etc. So one thing that we need to understand before starting something is that what is there which lies within us, the abilities, the qualities, the skills. Because we as an individual, when think about starting something, we need to map the resources that are there with us first. So suppose if I am an engineer and I have studied computer sciences or maybe information technology, and I wish to start something on the e-commerce platform, then that is one thing that will come very handy. My coding skills, my computing skills. If I have worked for 3-4 years with some other organization in the capacity of a manager or a coordinator, something of that sort, that will also come handy. Because whenever you start something, you would first start with resource mapping. You have to map your resources. So when we say that the skills and the traits that we have will come handy in starting that venture, we have to put all those things, those traits in perspective with the need, with the problem, with the enterprise that we want to start or we need to start. Suppose we want to start a YouTube channel, and I have a prior knowledge or prior understanding of how to handle a camera, how to do editing and all these things. So these things will come very handy, isn't it? And it doesn't only mean that you would only confine to the skills that you have. We see many engineers, many doctors getting into entrepreneurial space. They haven't studied engineering, they haven't studied entrepreneurship per se, but now they are getting into that space using their existing skills and existing knowledge. So you, as an entrepreneur, should understand your traits, your taste. So by taste, we mean that motivation should be there, isn't it? So suppose if I am a agriculture graduate and agriculture interests me, but it's just that I feel it's not remunerative, it would not give me good financial returns, but my interest lies there, and I end up starting something in the technology domain which doesn't interest me. My expertise doesn't lie there, my taste is not there. There are highly likely chances that I won't succeed on that. So that is one thing. My abilities is more to do with the skill that I have and what I can do. So skill is one part, and you as a person will have different abilities. By abilities we mean that some people who are more patient, more perseverance, more intellectual, all those things. So if your personal traits can also come handy in building your social enterprise, this is another thing that you can consider before starting a enterprise or before thinking of being an entrepreneur. Another thing that we should mention and we should take into consideration is, what do I know? So like I told you, the education and the expertise part, that I may be an engineer or a doctor or a trainer or whatever, but how can I use all those skills to build an enterprise that I want to? And to build that enterprise, I need to first identify the problem. So if the problem is identified, I can map my resources in accordance with the problem that I have identified to meet or to require or to invent a solution that can address that problem. Experience, I would also say, will be one of the most important things here. Not that people who don't have experience, who are fresh graduate, cannot start their own enterprise. Nowadays, it's widely seen that students in their undergrads or in masters, while studying only, have started their enterprises and have been largely very successful. But getting an experience is always handy, because it will give you an idea about how it is to work in an environment, in a corporate environment, where it will give you a fair idea about what all other departments that are there in a company. Not that we haven't studied it during our academics, but it will give us a practical experience. Like, there is a logistics department, then there is a marketing department, operations, finance, and how do they coordinate with each other. So ideally, getting an experience is always handy. Now the last point is, whom do I know? So networking is one of the most important part of being into the space of social entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurship for that matter. Not that you need to actively network with people, you need to talk to different people. See, if your work is related to maybe waste management, and if you're talking to 100 other people with different expertise, it might not add that much value to your work. What you need to do is that you need to do networking, you need to talk to people, you need to talk to people to get advice, to get connected, all these things, but you need to do it in a certain way. So you have a limited energy that you will be putting into your own venture, into your own social enterprise, and then you will also investing that energy into talking to people, learning new things, getting trained, getting new connections, maybe getting new business, all these things. So that will be required. But then too much of it is also not very advisable, I would say, because what happens is that once you go to a conference or a business event, you end up talking to 10 people, 12 people, and at the end of it, you realize that only one of them could prove to be helpful for you. So that is one thing that I can say from my experience, that we should always be very particular about identifying people who can help us. Who can help us grow, who can help us understand the domain. So if I as an entrepreneur have started working in the domain of waste management, I need to know more about it, because my academia, my degree hasn't equipped me enough to get a good understanding of what waste management is. I may be a management graduate who has studied MBA and then would want to work towards it. So one thing that is very important is to build that social and professional network. When we talk about social network, another thing that is very important here is social capital. So it is like a domain in itself, largely studied, largely been written about. So social capital is I'll touch upon it very briefly. Social capital is, if you know 10 people who have a very good connection or very good network, then probably they can help you in a way which won't require you to expend to expend money or to put financial resources into it. So if I know someone who can give me a good network or a good idea or a good opportunity to explore something that otherwise would have required financial resources to put in, that is a social capital that I will count in. Okay, so suppose if I know someone who is working in waste management, I can get an idea or I can get an understanding about what it is to work in waste management space, how it is to work with waste pickers and all those things. So that experience and that idea would have costed me money. had I not been knowing that person, isn't it? Like connecting to someone, if I'm going to a conference or some other place, if somebody helps me out with accommodation, resources and everything, which otherwise would have costed me money, that is social capital. So this is a capital that we own because of our social network. So we don't spend money on it because we know people, because we know them, and because they are ready to help us. So social capital is very important concept that we need to understand and we need to use while studying or implementing or practicing entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship for that matter. Again, entrepreneurship effectual reasoning would be, what do we do? From given means to imagined ends, like I have explained. With effectual reasoning, we start from means and then gradually move towards ends. We don't wait for everything to be in place, for every resource to be gathered before starting something. We start from means and move towards imagined ends. The end that we have, ends that we have imagined. So when we talk about imagined ends, we talk about the desired state that we talked initially, like the better state that we can move towards by identifying opportunities, addressing problems, and identifying needs. So from given means to ends, from customer identification to customer definition. So whenever we start a venture, there is one term comes from marketing is target audience. You know, the audience that you would target customer. It's the same thing, target audience or target customers. So when we talk about target audience and target customer, we are talking about identifying a group of people who are interested to buy our services or who are interested in our product. So when we talk about effectual reasoning, we say that we move from customer identification to customer definition. So in the first part, we have identified customers, like this section will be my customers. And from that part to the later part, I'll use that section as defining my customers. So I started with identifying my customers and then defining my customers. From customer definition to adding segment strategic partners. So when we talk about adding strategic partner, we are talking about growth. We are talking about scaling our venture. So the initial point or the initial part of our entrepreneurship journey would be identifying customers. Then you have defined your customer, like your customer segment that you have defined, and then you will move to adding segment and strategic partners. So you will add more segment as and when you grow. Like most of the organization that you see, the startup space that is there in India, you see that most of the organization have started with providing one service which caters to only one customer segment. But now they are expanding to other segments, other services which they can offer over the period of time. As and when they grow, they would offer more services for different customer segments. From adding segment strategic partner to defining one or several markets. So now we moved from defining a customer, identifying a customer to defining a customer to adding more services in the current definition of the segmentation that we have. And now we are talking about exploring the new market. So it will be like you are working in this space of, say, e-commerce, and now you have provided the customers with different options. Like you have started with women-specific products, then you moved on to the male-specific product, then to children-specific product, and an elderly-specific product. So you have covered all four segments that you can cater to through your e-commerce organization. Now these four segments are within the same market of e-commerce industry. Now you are planning to move to a different industry where you are catering to the customers for, say, food. You are providing them with food. So now you have explored a different market. Like one of the great example of this is nowadays we are using applications to pay money. Application as an ATM. So when we talk about using that application probably started with providing as a transactional platform where you can pay money, where you can receive money, where you can recharge your phone or something like that. And now that application is now allowing you to to book movie tickets. Now this is another segment that the same organization has moved into. That organization will now be launching a bank. So now it will be a different market segment. So now you can understand that there is one market and there are different segments within the same market. Also there is another market. So once you first you target a market, you target a particular segment in that market, you cover different segment in the same market, and then you move to different market covering different segments. So that's when we say that adding segment strategic partner to defining one or several markets. Now the effectual reasoning principles, from expected returns to affordable loss. We have talked about affordable loss. We say that entrepreneurs are not risk takers. Entrepreneurs are risk managers. You manage the risk, and you can only manage the risk only if you know what is at stake. So when we talk about managing risk, you should know how much of the loss you can afford. So from expected returns to affordable loss. So you should know what are the returns that you are expecting when you are starting a venture, when you are starting an enterprise, because you will have to do all your financials, like how much are you putting in, how much you are expecting, what is the time that you want to give it to, when will you break even. All these things needs to be taken into consideration before starting something. And for that you also need to consider the affordable loss, because everything might not go as planned. You will have to plan for the unexpected maybe situations, outcomes, all those things. You need to be prepared for that, and for that you need to calculate your affordable loss. What is there which you can afford to lose? So from expecting returns to affordable loss. The second one is from competitive analysis to build on strategic partnership. So when we talk about competitive analysis, in typical business terms, we feel that an organization which is working on the same service, working on the same issue, providing the same product is our competitor. But can we use that organization, or can we use that platform to build a strategic partnership with that organization? Can we do that? So that is another question that we need to ask. Do we think about competition, or do we think about building strategic partnership? Like Peter Thiel, one of the big entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley in United States, has written, 0 to 1, a book in which he talks about competitive analysis, competition, like how do we deal with competition? Do we really need to take competition into consideration, or do we just need to work on the product that we are developing and over the period of time make it as good as possible, so that no other organization can take any competitive advantage over the product or over the service that we have developed. So building a strategic partnership to a competitive analysis, we need to understand where we can find a common ground, where we can develop a strategic partnership with the people whom we are seeing as competitors. The third point is from exploitation of existing knowledge and predictions to leveraging contingencies. So what does it mean? Exploiting of existing knowledge and predictions. So whenever you start something, though we talk about effectual logic, we talked about gut feeling, we talked about having that zit or that feel to start something, to using your existing knowledge and prediction. Because anyways, you just cannot move ahead with effectual logic. You have to use causal logic, and for causal logic you'll be using managerial tools, managerial techniques to better those outcomes, to make better understanding or to build better understanding on that enterprise and work towards leveraging your contingencies. Now we will talk about entrepreneurial process framework. So as you can see, that purpose is at the top. So with purpose, we will, by purpose we mean that we have identified an opportunity, we have identified a problem, and now we have a purpose, we have an aim, we have an objective to meet that problem or to address that problem. Now after purpose, we will talk about creativity and innovation. When we talk about creativity and innovation, like in the previous slides, we have discussed about need and how that need can be met in a different way. So by creativity and innovation, we mean that we are creating and innovating the same product or the same service in a way which will meet the need of the customer in a better manner, in a better way. So by creativity and innovation, we get that opportunity to make things or to address those problems and identify those opportunities in a better way. So motivation is another part where opportunity seeing and exploiting and planning actions and problem is considered. So when motivation, you need to have that motivation to identify those opportunity and exploit that opportunities. And it doesn't end with seeing and exploiting those opportunities. You also need to plan your actions and plan about the problems that you might face while moving towards your entrepreneurial aim or through your entrepreneurial journey. Another thing we'll talk about here is determination. Determination is doing or arranging resources, working with known and unknown channels, managing problems and failures, etc. So with determination, we mean that while you'll be arranging resources, working with known and unknown channel, you need to have that perseverance with you. You need to be determined. You need to have that determination to keep on going, keep on arranging resources, keep on working with the knowns and with the unknown channel, because there are a lot of unknown territories that you will be exploring on your journey of entrepreneurship. Managing problem and failures. Failure is part and parcel of an entrepreneurial journey. Failure doesn't mean that the organization fails as a whole. The organization might fail in acquiring a new customer segment or in implementing a new module, in implementing new training, anything for that matter. So there can be failure at very small level to the big level, but failures are inevitable. They will happen in the process of journey. And the last part is growth. So when we talk about growth, we talk about strategic thinking and action. So suppose you have put things into place, you have identified the problem, you have identified the resources, and now you would want to start something. So you'll start that. Over the period of time, you will feel the need to scale it to a level where you will need to think strategically and take actions on it. So when we talk about strategic thinking and action, we need to have a growth plan at hand. So even if we are starting small with acquiring say 10-20 customers, we should have a growth plan for a year, 3 year, 5 years. Not necessarily for this much long time. It's totally up to you. If you are comfortable with 1 year, 3 year, may make plan for 1 year or 3 year. But you should have a growth plan. You should know that today I am targeting or catering to 2 or 10 customers. 6 months down the line, I will be catering to 200 customers from these cities. 3 years down the line, I'll be catering to 5,000, 50,000 customers from these different countries, these different cities, demography, all those things. So the growth plan is a must. You should have a growth plan at hand. Another thing is customer focus. So over the period of time, what you do is that you acquire customers, you define customer, and then you build customer relations. You understand the need of the customer and you constantly work to improve those needs, to make the whole experience better for the customer. And this is what we call focusing on the customer. The last part is social plans. Like how would you want to network, how would you want to grow in terms of your scale in the social sphere or in the social domain. Must go in holistic way before committing anything. So this, be it motivation, creativity, innovation, growth or determination, all needs to be taken care of in a holistic manner. You just cannot deal with one thing in isolation and expect other things to get better. So we need to be holistic in our approach to address all these problems. The last part is Jeffrey Timpson's model of entrepreneurial process. So Jeffrey Timpson's model of entrepreneurial process talks about 3 main things: opportunity, resources and teams. Starting with opportunity, we have already talked about how an opportunity can be seen through a need, the way in which that need can be met better, less supply cost, supply economics, all these things we have talked about opportunity. Now resources. Resources we have also talked about in effectual logic and in causal logic term. The last part is team. So when we talk about team, like they say that in today's time there is no dearth of resources, there is no dearth of funding, there is no dearth of opportunities. The only thing that is lacking is good teams. We don't have good teams working together to address an issue or to address a problem. So opportunity, resources and teams needs to work in synchronization for any entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship business to flourish or to take off. When we talk about opportunity, opportunity can be identified in three parts. One is opportunity identification, where you identify the opportunity. The second is opportunity discovery, where you discover the opportunity. And third one is opportunity identification, opportunity definition and opportunity discovery. These are three parts in which opportunity can be defined. So when we talk about identifying an opportunity, we say that we have identified an opportunity which has already been there. Okay. Suppose if everybody would want to have clear access or good access to water. But the whole, this water purifier space has largely been very unorganized. And now we are getting many solutions, from putting that water purifier on your tab to putting a big RO in your house. So that probably is the opportunity identification part. People have identified that opportunity over the period of time. Now we talk about opportunity discovery. Like, how do you discover the opportunity? So when we talk about opportunity discovery, we talk about exploring an unknown terrain, unknown field. So maybe the hyperloop experiment that is going on in today's time, which is being experimented in states and now in India as well, is something that is a discovery that has never existed. That is something that never has been thought about by anyone. But now we are talking about hyperloop as a mode of transport. Opportunity identification, we have talked about. Opportunity discovery, we have talked about. Now we will talk about opportunity creation, where we talk about creating an opportunity which has never been there, which is not there to be identified. So these online taxi aggregators that you see is opportunity that is being created. So you have created a platform to facilitate customers as well as drivers. So this is what we call opportunity creation. Opportunity discovery, opportunity creation and opportunity identification are three ways in which we can explore opportunity. The third part is teams. Like we have talked about resources, how to accumulate resources and all that. Now we are talking about teams. So for team, there is always a part of uncertainty and financial resource context. So when we talk about teams and building an enterprise over the period of time, there is always an element of uncertainty, because with most of the startups over the period of time, it's been seen that they find it hard to keep their team intact. They don't have the right person for the right job. So that's where your whole plan goes haywire. So, and that is another thing that we need to take into consideration. Creativity, communication and leadership are three important parts of it. So when we talk about opportunity and teams with respect to each other, we talk about creativity. Like you have identified an opportunity and now you have built a team around it, so to provide a very creative and innovative solution for the business. When we talk about opportunity and resources, we talk about communication. Because if you have an opportunity, you need to communicate to people to accumulate resources. You need to express your idea, you need to communicate your idea to take people on board. The last thing that we will talk about is team and resources. So when we talk about team and resources, we talk about leadership. Because you have a team, you have resources. Now you would want the team members to exploit those resources in the best possible manner, and those resources to be utilized at their full capacity by the team. So you would need the leadership, the quality to make all those resources counts by the team that you have at hand. And financial resources, context and exogenous forces are another two elements that comes into play when we talk about leadership and resources. So we will conclude our lecture here for today. Jeffrey, In the next lecture, we will talk about creating a business model canvas, wherein, like we have already talked about how the social entrepreneurship domain is and how the opportunity can be identified. In the next lecture, we will talk about how we develop the business model over the period of time. What all are the things that we need to take into consideration? The marketing plan, the financial plan, customer segment, risk, prospective partners. All those things will be dealt with in the next model, so that you will have a fair idea as to how to map your idea into a business framework, so that you get a good understanding of the whole business process, how it communicates with each other. So in the next lecture, we will talk about the business model canvas and developing your own business idea. Thank you.
With this note, thank you, Mr. Yogesh Kumar, for giving us a deep insight into the topic. And dear friends, as Mr. Yogesh said, we would be covering a lot in future sessions, and we would like you to see the lecture once it is uploaded on YouTube. And afterwards, if you feel that you have any query, or if you want to give your feedback for the particular lecture, then definitely you can mail us at info.cc@nic.in. Keep watching us, keep writing us. Your feedbacks are very, very important for us. And once again, we would like to thank Mr. Yogesh Kumar for giving us a deep insight. Thank you, Mr. Yogesh. Thank you for watching us.